Hi, Laverne.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm good, very good. And how are you?
I'm good. I'm at the Walpole.
Okay, so this is the meeting being recorded. This is a meeting of the Dover Zoning Board of Appeals. We are resuming the hearing on an application by Robert Recchia for the issuance of a comprehensive permit under General Laws, Chapter 40B, Sections 20 through 23 for parcels on Trout Brook Road, Chickern Drive, and Edgewater Drive in Dover. Hold on a minute. Let me make sure closed captioning is on. Okay, so I think we're ready to go. Let me just say that Nancy Green, one of our associate members, is under the weather, so she's not going to be able to join us tonight. The first issue tonight, Sean Reardon is our civil consultant, a peer review consultant. He's only available for 30 minutes or so. So what we wanted to do is start with there are some issues that he has raised that are same issues raised by our architectural review consultant, Cliff Davis.
Can you mute Mike D, please?
I'm sorry?
There's feedback.
Yeah, I don't know what's causing that.
There's feedback.
Yeah, I don't know what's causing that.
Mike D needs to be muted. Mike D needs to be muted.
That do any better?
Yep. So
Oh,
if
okay.
I know that we are limited to Sean's time, so is it okay if I kind of launch into what we need to launch into?
Yes, I just wanted to say that his comments some of his comments overlap with those of the architectural peer review consultant, Cliff Davis. So the point here is in the next 30 minutes to address those issues in common, and hopefully we can get through those. So Lynn, go ahead.
Terrific. Lynn Sweet, LDS Consulting here, consulting group out of Wellesley. I'm here with Aaron, who is our architect, Daniel, who is our civil engineer, Jonathan, our 40B attorney, and Scott Goddard on behalf of the developer. So I'm going to share my screen and try and run through as quickly as I can the presentation, which does cover both architectural and site plan matters that overlap. Then once we no longer have Sean, we can certainly go into some of the other administrative matters, like questions that might not have been able to be asked on the sidewalk, peer review, funding that's needed, as well as extension. So are you okay if I share my screen?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. All right. Just make sure. Sorry. Okay, so can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, the presentation. Okay, so the first slide is basically items that we thought that were site plan related. So I'm just going to go through the words of them and then show the site plan. So item 5A that Cliff raised was whether or not we needed to have a staircase from the back deck to the backyard. Our response to that is that not everybody wants a staircase going into the backyard. There is wildlife and whatnot, so that is something we're specifically not showing, not because we haven't thought about it, because we don't think that we need it. We think it is important that you can get to your deck from your house, but not necessarily from your backyard to your deck. Items, and these are labeled in accordance with what Cliff's comments were, that he wanted us to address the items in 5. So 5C and D, site clearance, neighbor footprints. Looks like there's a typo in there. So the plan we have highlighted the limit of work And we have added the locations of the neighboring buildings. And then the other item is that we don't have an issue with there being a condition that requires prior to building permit that we flag trees that are going to be removed. You can either you can do trees that are saved or trees that are removed. That is certainly up to you. Under 5M, I think we stated this before that there isn't a statute that we provide a landscape plan at this time. We don't have an issue again with that being a condition. We do feel that that is something that the builder that is going to be building the custom homes is going to want to address farther down the road when they go to pull a building permit. At this time, there are no plans to connect the basement doors to the driveway. There's no reason to do that. The plans do show a walkway from the driveway to the front door of the units. With regard to 5N, it's we have a grading plan, and I think that that's something that Dan can walk Cliff through that helps you understand the view from the street to the homes. There certainly will be retaining walls around some of the septic systems. So I'm going to let Dan sort of walk you around the plan. I believe, Dan, is the red line the limit of work?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And as far as locating where the neighbors' septic systems are, I believe.
So we indicated here on the plans where the adjoining homes and driveways were, where we could show them on the plan, and also where if there was a well in proximity to our sites or septic system, we've shown that, and we've demonstrated that, you know, we meet all the required setbacks for septic systems to wells and wells to septic systems. We've also added the bulkheads to the plans for the architectural comments, and we've added the location of outdoor HVAC units per the architectural comments.
So this is for the two lots that are on Trout Brook Road.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
gonna leave
1A
it.
and 2A.
Yep, leave it up for a minute, but this is, again, the septic field across the street. I believe this is where we put
That's a
one of
bulkhead.
a bulkhead. That's a bulkhead. And the HVAC we put,
On 2A, it's at the looking at the plan, it's the left rear corner of the house. And on 1A, it is on the right side of the house. Other way around, Lynn.
I know, isn't it awful? I don't know. I feel like I should make them bigger.
I could put up plans
Okay.
if anybody wants me to.
Do you want me to go to the next lot? So this is the lot at Chickering and Trout Brook Road. And the same thing of the limit of work is in the red.
Then
And
you have the septic system on the left for that home, which is across the street from lot 2A, which we noted previously. We put the bulkhead at the back left corner of the house and the HVAC units on the right side of the house. And I would note that the limit of work here is going to tweak a little bit. We're working on the comments with regards to the civil site stuff. And I on that note, I anticipate finishing probably tomorrow on that stuff. So if it's not submitted before the end of the week, it'll certainly be submitted by Monday, and that'll be a comprehensive response to all of the site comments, an updated stormwater report, and updated site plans.
And just from what I see right now, Dan, it looks like you're on the exact path for what I'd hope to see.
great. Okay, so I'm going to go to lot 45, I believe. Is that where we are? Yeah, on Edgewater Drive.
Yeah, lot 45, the bulkhead to the back right corner of the house. The HVAC units are on the left side wall of the house. And again, there's going to be some minor changes in limit of work and grading for the compensatory flood storage volumes that we're working on.
But I think one of the things is, and this sort of relates to the site walk, that in some of a lot of the comments, which is you can see that we're not working in the wetlands, this sort of thing. And I know there were some pictures that came through of a neighbor of like, sitting water, but that's not where the properties are being disturbed. So let me just see what else we've got here. So this, we included some of the neighboring properties because some of the comments that came in from Cliff were that, we were clearing the front of the lot, and this is the lot right next door. So we took a picture of that, and again, their lot is 100% cleared. And this is another view of the front of the property, being cleared. So we sort of felt like when we went on the site walk, we were able to show that everyone else's properties, their foundation wall was built up. So what we're doing is essentially, again, this is our opinion, and this is, what Dan has put in his plans. What we're doing is no different than what is happening at the neighbor properties. So I am now going to quickly run through the architectural responses and then have Aaron run you through the changes in the architectural plans, much like we did for the site plans. So under 5H, you asked if we could change the color to the buildings, and we have done that. That as far as energy, the buildings will meet the stretch code, and that we can confirm, Cliff, that they are going to be all electric. That the affordable home will have an unfinished basement. And I believe we've shown a plan showing the basement section. Great comment. We have added a bedroom window on each side elevation. And on lot 3045, there is no intention to have the bonus room be an additional bedroom, though we wouldn't do that for many reasons. The windows don't meet the egress requirements. We're not proposing a window well, and we are showing some sections with window sashes just for each lot to give you that. But I don't want anyone to think that we're designing units that would have an additional bedroom in them. That would be problematic on many levels. And I don't want someone to see that comment and think that it came from us. It did not. And as far as the finishes on the upper floors, they are going to have the same materials as the lower floor finishes. So I'm going to let Erin sort of, I will flip, and she can tell you what she's changed.
Hi, I'm Erin from CME Architects. Working with Lynn, and based off Cliff's comments we went through with these plans, we added the siding around all four sides of the buildings, just so you know what the finishes are going to be throughout. We added the windows on the side elevations in the second floor bedrooms, which actually I agree with, that works a lot better. They're big bedrooms, so they should have some light in there. The main differences as far as the units as a whole would really just regard some of the site stuff, where we do have a couple options that are the side load entry and the front load entry, and then where we have the basement windows like Lynn touched upon, we tried to maximize what we could based on what the siding would allow. So that's where you kind of get a little bit of a difference in if we have more of like an awning size, if we have a little bit more of a double hung size, or if we're only limited to just having a sash. But otherwise we're trying to get as much natural light in those basements as possible. So for lot 1, again, first floor, if you want to go down to the floor plan changes, the floor plans, Lynn, we can hit those real quick too. I don't think we had any real major changes in the floor plans, other than showing the locations for the AC units on our plans too, just to kind of give you guys a comparison. We do have the basement, so you can see in the market rates where the finished locations are gonna be with the windows and where those are gonna be located. And we did show additional basement sashes where we're gonna have the full foundation heights, just as we'll have those for venting needs anyway in the basement. I think in the second floor changes, we put the windows off to the side on those side walls so that they'd stay out of the way for bedroom placement, but let some more light into those rooms. I think throughout the rest of the plans, the general comments were mostly just how the grading sits around the house. We did work in the sections. I think if you want to go to the next slide, Lynn. We worked in the sections to show where we do have unfinished storage and bonus room space, like on this lot. This is one of the market lots. When we do get into the affordable unit, you'll see it's just all unfinished storage down there. It is obviously going to have a full basement down there, but it's not going to have any finished storage, any finished space down there. And we're also hoping the sections are kind of showing where the grading comes into the house and the difference that we'll have in heights for the garage, entry up into the home. I think you can go down to the next one, Lynn. Yeah, and all of these, again, we were updating. I think we had a misplaced render on one of the units, so we adjusted the units to match the front elevations for all of these. We did give a couple options for colors, tried to change up the units that are on, next to each other, but we gave a couple variations for siding colors. This is the affordable unit where, based on the lot, we end up with basement sashes for our window light, so we still get some light in there. If you go down to the next plan, Lynn, I think that will show the new basement, just so they can see the unfinished space and the unfinished storage. So they'll have plenty of room down there for storage for sure. And we added the windows in this unit as well, so that you can see that's all in there for the same for these. And I think we had an update for the sections to show that it was all the unfinished storage in the next slide as well. Yeah, and that shows all the unfinished storage down in the basement. And this one doesn't have as much of a drop in foundation where everything comes up so high, so you don't have as much of a knee wall in this unit as you do in the other units. I think you can go down to the next one, Lynn. Yep, and this is a side entry. This was adjusted for grading around the house and how we slope up to the house. So we did adjust this one mostly for the grading purposes, as well as, the other couple comments for windows, etc. I think you can kind of probably scan through these ones a little bit, Lynn. This one also has the finished basement in it as well. And I think lot 45 was the last one that had a significant change to the rendering and front elevation, just to kind of reiterate how we slope up from the house, how you'll have a kind of a retaining wall and slope up from the house with a couple steps as you walk from the driveway towards the front door. I think that was the biggest change for this one as far as those grading options. So shown in the rendering and shown a little bit more clearly in the 2D plans as well. And this one is the one that has the most significant drop in the basement as well. So we do have the biggest window in this version for the bonus room, as that had the biggest drop in the back of the house.
So we've only got a couple more slides, and certainly we will share these with everybody. I know you're going to want to take a closer look at them, but the day that we went or the morning that we went for the site visit, it was absolutely pouring. And so we did take some pictures. The other properties have standing water. It's just, it was 2 or 3 inches of rain. It doesn't last long. It gets absorbed. And I don't know if Daniel, if you want to talk a little bit more to that.
No, I guess the only thought would be, obviously we had some major rain the day before and it was still raining when we went out there. So there were puddles all around the neighborhood, including on these lots. So that's not unusual. And it's pretty typical for what you'd find if you drove around those neighborhoods in other parts of Dover that morning. You'd find similar circumstances in many places. So
I think that what we're doing on our property, and it's not required, is we are actually putting in stormwater management And I don't know, Dan, that is actually going to try and control, where that water is going and where is, how it's going to be absorbed. And that's part of the review that is going back and forth between Sean and Dan at this point, which is that it's being looked at and hopefully and planned for. So it's 7:20. We promised we would run through it quickly. We will obviously be putting, the response in a formal letter to Cliff with the plans attached. In addition to the formal response to Sean's letter. But we wanted to see if you, is Cliff here? Oh, there you
Yes.
are. Okay. If Cliff had any, we tried to hit the major points that you had in that section 5, as best we could, in an abbreviated version. We're happy, Aaron's here and Dan are here right now to answer any questions you have, or if Sean wants to go first, since he's only got a few more minutes, we're here to answer your questions.
Okay.
If you wouldn't mind.
We're gonna let Sean go first. Sean, you go ahead.
So number one, in terms of the choices of how you mark trees for demolition or for cutting down, please mark trees that are to be removed.
Okay.
Because I've
Okay. So
had
that's
flags taken off and trees get cut down that weren't supposed to get cut down. So that
So
way, if
that-
a flag
that-
gets taken,
Okay, so then that would be, a condition, presumably, that you would
only
mark
question I have
trees to come down. Got it.
is a question for Dan. Dan, the septic systems are all sized for the room counts shown on the plans, right? They're not oversized or sized for any sort of anything different than what's shown on the plans.
No, that's correct.
That's it for me.
Sean, did you want to say anything about the drawing you submitted earlier?
Yeah, my intent wasn't really to submit that, more as just a thing to sort of inform the work that Dan was doing and just identify something that I saw that, I just wanted to make sure he was paying attention to. So I trust Dan that he'll address it. And when we get a revised submittal from him, if the concern still remains, then I'll identify it in my follow-up comment letter.
Okay.
But from what I saw on the plans that I saw on the screen, a lot of what I had sort of hand sketched on the drawings for what I was hoping to see, I saw on the plan. So I think clearly he understands what I've been asking for, and hopefully he addresses all of them.
Okay. Thank you. So let's turn it over to Cliff and get your comments in response to what the applicant has just presented.
Okay, thank you. I think probably you saw my letter, and I appreciate I think my main focus was pointing out some inconsistencies in the drawings, and it sounds like you're well on the way to having resolved that. So I think that's terrific. My issues, I think, are not about big impact. I think Dover has something like 2,000 housing units, and adding 4 homes to that is not a big number. So that really isn't what I've been concerned with. My concerns have just been very local issues. I think the housing type, and I think obviously it's a single family environment. So the existing pattern of development, I don't think is disrupted by the introduction of these homes. But because of the site limitations, the way that the challenge is to really having the homes kind of organically fit into the texture of the neighborhood is there because of the constraints on the space that you really have to site the homes. So I think what I've consistently been concerned about on all the developments I review is giving the best possible notion to the board and to the neighbors what what to expect, to the best degree possible. Let everybody know what's likely to come. And I think it isn't, I think in a case like this, particularly because I don't think the overall impact on the community is huge, but there's the neighbors are really going to know what is happening there. And I think the reason I was really pushing and still do push on, and I appreciate those diagrams of the extent of the work, and I guess those drawings that we saw now about the extent of the construction work is very close to what I was asking for, which is the area that's to be cleared on the site. And I think the reason that I was and continue to push for the idea of a landscaping plan isn't whether or not it's required or not by the statute. It's not so much about that. It's more that in a situation like this where the homes, because they will end up closer to the street than other homes. And I think Lynn is correct. Many homes have cleared the front. I think I'm actually more thinking about the side setbacks. And I think that in situations like this, providing landscape plans up front are actually a vehicle for engaging with the neighbors to help them feel better about what's coming, because it will be noticeable. The housing types, I think, are absolutely fine. I have zero issues with the design of these homes. I think they're going to fit in really nicely. That's not my concern. To me, it's about neighbor engagement and understanding that the neighbors are going to see a very big change from what they're used to. And I would hope that maybe rather than conditioning about a landscape plan, that this would be a good opportunity for the developer to work with the neighbors to maybe collaboratively come up with ideas about how to mitigate the impact of these homes. I think.
Can I stop you for just a minute? Before we
Absolutely.
lose Sean, one issue we need to address tonight, the applicant had put in escrow $9,000 to pay for the peer review consultant services, and we've used up most of that. And I wanted to ask you and Sean if you have a sense of how much more work compared to what you've done already, you expect to put in so that we can figure out how much additional funds to ask the applicant to put in reserve.
I'll go first on that.
Yeah.
Hang on. I got an email from somebody saying that there are a bunch of Dover citizens in the waiting room.
Well, they're not supposed to be in a waiting room,
Okay,
but let me get Sean's comments first.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of my issues are on paper already, and the bulk of my work was just getting sort of acclimated to the various different projects. Mike, you're on. If you can mute again, that'd be awesome. Not that I don't like listening to myself, but there we go. And so I can't expect to spend more than a third of what we've spent to date, but I would go back to my original proposal. If I haven't expended that budget, I'd suggest holding to that. But a lot of it depends on what we get next. If everything gets addressed, then it can be very easy. If there are still outstanding issues, then it's going to take a little bit more time.
Of course, I'm just trying to get a sense. I understand you can't give me a definitive answer.
And what I'd say is once we get the revised submittal, I'll get right back to you and tell you what we're looking at.
Okay.
And we'll be happy to deposit additional funds once we know what that is. The lines of communication are open.
Okay. Cliff, how about you?
I think for me, to review these, what we're looking at now, to take a little bit of time and review them is not a lot, an hour, 2 hours, something like that. I think the thrust of my review, assuming that what we're seeing here is what I'll be able to review once it's actually formally submitted. The thrust of my review has more to do with engagement with the neighbors rather than me. I think it's more important on that front rather than me reviewing a landscape plan and figuring out whether or not that really is helping to build support with the neighbors for the development. So for me, it really is just reviewing what's been submitted now, which is not a whole lot. And I do hope that that there will be some engagement that could come up with a landscape plan that would still be an open process. So which wouldn't engage me really.
I think, yeah, I totally appreciate your comment and this is not meant to be a criticism. It's more of a statement of fact, which is that the first 3 or 4 months of the hearing were spent trying to deal with potential reasons to not have the hearings. This is probably the first substantive hearing, that we've had in the 6-month period. We're not willing to extend the hearings to spend money on a landscape plan because at the end of the day, this applicant is not going to be the end user who is a developer. However, I can assure you that the concerns of the neighbor are going to be the exact same concerns of the developer. They are going to want to have privacy on their property as well. They are going to recognize how close things are to the neighbors. And I'm sure that they will work within the limitations of the site. And I mean that because of, wetland soils and other types of things. And, some of them have easements on top of them. They will work to put in, landscaping that will help with screening. It would be to their detriment not to do that because they're going to be looking to obviously have these as custom homes and be able to cover their costs and then the cost of the affordable unit. So I don't want you to think that we haven't heard what you've been saying and we don't respect what you're saying. We're basically out of time and budget at this point to do it. And we don't want to put something on a plan that someone else is going to come in and say, well, I like this particular kind of tree, or, I have a landscape architect that has, a different set of ideas. So, I guess we're going to have to agree to disagree on the point right now.
And Alan, I'm going to step out. So I look forward to seeing the revised submittal and we'll talk soon.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it.
Good night, everybody.
I can't figure out how to let in people from the waiting room. Does anybody know how to do that? I don't see
Can you
any.
go to participants, click on the participant list?
Yep.
And is there a way to allow people in from the participant list, or are you set up as a webinar that you need to promote people to be presenters or something like that?
I can invite. Give me a minute.
I also do want to thank Cliff for being happy with the building plans that are presented. We think Aaron did a great job and we appreciate the opportunity to fix some of the inconsistencies. It's great to have another set of eyes.
It looks like you hit on all of them.
Yeah, and I'll actually, while he's playing around, I'll bring it up and I'll run it through so you can see the different colors really quick.
And extra ideas too, because I was like, oh my God, these are some good ideas to add into the plan.
I did an invite of everybody that seems to be there, but I don't see them showing up.
So this is sort of a grayish sort of thing.
Hold on a minute, Lynn. Hold on. I want to try and get people who are waiting in.
Tan. I'll go back through it again. Grayish.
But I don't see the I don't see the invite working. And I have no idea why.
Ellen, for what it's worth,
Yeah.
when I just clicked on the link and I came right in,
Yeah,
this didn't seem to be set up with a waiting room. So I'm
wasn't.
not sure.
That's
I'm
why
not sure how anyone would have ended up in a waiting room.
I don't
you-
understand that either.
yeah, let me email her my Zoom link and see if she can just click on that. Mm. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I don't think any of us, we came right in.
Yeah, no, I
And
don't.
I can see
I
Ian
set
from
it
my
up-
office is here and our whole team made it in.
I always set it up so that anybody who clicks on it is automatically in. And I see
Mhm.
people listed, but okay, well, I've done everything I
Right, I
can.
emailed her a couple times, so hopefully. Yeah, there was no ID to put in or anything.
So I don't know what that's all about. Okay,
So, Cliff, were there any other comments, or any comments from anyone else on architecture? Because I know we've got a bunch of other sort of items we want to hit on tonight too.
And not really. I think I've stated it all in the letter, and
Okay.
I'm looking forward to just seeing it in a form where I can review it with a little more time.
Is sending you the presentation with the numbers on it enough, or do you want it in an actual letter?
I think I just need to see whatever is actually submitted to the town.
Okay. Are you, because we have sort of the preliminary site plans that show, the outlines, and we have the architectural plans that I don't think are going to be changing. Oh, good, there's Carol. She made it in. Do you want a full set of everything, a full-size set of at least the architectural plans, and then we can follow up with a full-size set of the site plans once those are part of the site plan package?
No, I don't need that. I'll just work off of whatever's officially submitted to the town. I don't need a paper copy or anything.
No, I'm sorry. So Cliff, I'm gonna send you the PowerPoint presentation, and I'm gonna, I'll send that to Alan. Alan, I'm assuming you're going to need full-size hard copies of the architectural plans, because those have changed.
But
yeah,
I'm so sorry to interrupt briefly. I believe that the issue is that the link that's posted on the website is a different Zoom link than this one, because I just went and did that and ended up in a different meeting. And I asked the people in that meeting if they were intending to be in this one, and they said, yes, it's about 6 people in there.
Okay. I emailed Carol, so hopefully she can email the people that have been emailing her.
Okay.
sorry, I don't understand what you're saying, Kristen.
I just went and clicked on the Zoom link rather than the link that I have on my Outlook invitation. I went and clicked on the link that's part of the posted notice.
Yeah.
And it was a different link. It took me to a different Zoom meeting. So those people aren't in a waiting room. They're just in an entirely different meeting.
That's weird.
Yeah. So I let everyone in there know that was the case. I can go ahead and go back in there and repost the link for this if anyone wants
Sure.
to join.
Okay. Yeah, great.
So Aaron, so Aaron, I think we need to send the plans that we put into our PowerPoint presentation
Okay,
into to Felicia
okay.
to meet the submission requirements, the 11
Sure.
by 17, whatever we
Yeah,
normally
I think
do.
we did, look what we did last time, but I feel like it was maybe 5 sets, 11 by 17 and
Yeah.
24 by 36.
Okay. So,
But what it is we need 6 sets of anything full size and 5 sets of anything reduced size.
Okay,
okay, we'll go back and we'll see what we've submitted, but I think the architectural plans are not changing again. So
Right.
we'll get those into you. We'll get you the presentation and click, so Cliff can start to see how the numbers, connect. And then hopefully when Dan is done, we'll follow up with the full-size site plans that need to go into the town, as well as Dan's line-by-line response to Sean's letter.
Okay. Laverne,
The members of the board tonight giving their opinions about the site visit? Or is
yeah,
that?
we're gonna get to that.
Yeah,
I just
okay.
wanted to make sure we're finished with Cliff.
Okay.
Sounds like maybe
A
we
lot of
are.
opinions about the site visit.
Cliff, is there anything else you want to say at this point?
No, not right now. I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. So Len, and let's talk about the review fees, just since we're dealing with our peer review consultants.
Uh, Does anybody on the board have any questions about the architectural stuff? Just, or does anyone on the public have a question just before we get in, move on? I just want to sort of finish architecture and move.
Well, let's get to that in a minute. Let me just wrap up the fee issue and see if there's any issue there. My suggestion would be that that the applicant submit another 5,000 to be held in escrow. Is that okay with you? If we don't, obviously, if we don't use it all, then you get the balance back.
I thought that we had said that we were going to hear from Sean as to how much more he needed. It sounds like we still have $2,000, I believe, in there. Cliff said his stuff was minor. So,
What I understood him to say was that his estimate is still valid.
okay,
but
so let
he
me
hasn't billed- he
go
hasn't-
find that.
He
Hang on.
hasn't billed all of that yet. But we
Okay,
are
hang on.
down to less than $1,000 of the original 9,000. So it's pretty clear to me, we're gonna need more funds.
Let me just look at his, I'm not disputing that. I just want to take a look.
'Cause I don't want to run out of funds and leave our peer review consultants wondering whether they're gonna get paid.
Right. Scott, are you okay with depositing another 5,000, assuming that the majority of it may end up being used up, or
Yep,
we'll
I
get
think,
it
I think
back?
yep, that's reasonable.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we'll work on that.
Okay, so I'll entertain let me just get rid of this issue, get it off the table. I'll entertain a motion to require the applicant to deposit the additional sum of $5,000 with the town for payment of the expenses incurred by peer review consultants. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Second? Do I have a
Second.
second? All in
Second.
favor?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay,
Aye.
so that's done. Okay.
And I actually looked up the contract, and yeah, 5,000 looks like that's about what's left on Sean, so that's perfect.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about what we've discussed so far in terms of Cliff and Sean's comments and the responses to them. Board members, do you have anything that you want to ask about or comment on at this point concerning that?
Well,
Laverne?
I think my comments are about the entire site visit that we had. I wrote it all down when we got back, because I said I'll forget all the things I want to say, but
Let's get into that in just a minute. I just want to see
Okay.
if there's any comments about what's been discussed so far tonight.
no.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about the site visit. Laverne, go ahead.
This is Mike.
Hold on a minute, Mike.
This is Mike. I have some comments.
Good, let
Yes.
Mike talk first.
Mike, I'm not sure why, but we're getting.
I have some about the septic, and
Mike, we're getting a lot of feedback when you're not muted. Is there any way you can fix that? Mike, we're getting a lot of feedback when you're not muted. Is there any way you can fix that?
I'm not sure. Does that help any?
I don't know. Let's see. It's been giving echoes when anybody else talk. Yeah, that seems to be okay.
Yep.
So go ahead.
Can you still hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
yes.
Am I still being choppy?
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Few meetings ago, and again, I wish Sean was here. There was a citizen comment from the neighborhood that the deep hole and the perk testing was done in the summer of 2022, which was a year of a severe drought. He was very concerned that the data taken during the severe drought would have a marked negative impact on the design of the septic systems. And what I'm thinking is we are now in a very wet year. It's been raining a lot. And it might be necessary to do another deep hole and perk test to make sure that the septic parameters are correct for handling the loads that are going to be put on them by the 4-bedroom houses.
Anybody on the applicant side want to comment on that?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Dan Merrick, Legacy Engineering.
Mike,
Soil
you need to,
testing.
Mike, we're still getting feedback. You need to mute when you're not talking. Okay.
There we go. The septic testing that was completed was conducted in accordance with state regulations and was witnessed by the Board of Health agent. So it's really not weather dependent. The state has established procedures for taking into consideration soils conditions, that it really doesn't matter what time of year you're working in and what the weather conditions are.
I would also note, Mr. Chair, that you have a peer reviewer, a very experienced, knowledgeable peer reviewer who was present for that conversation and who has not raised that as a concern. And you heard him today indicate that he's very comfortable with the direction things are going.
Okay.
Well, that's all well and good, but it was still done during a time of severe drought that is in one of the top contenders in the record for the area. So here's my concern. In our initial meeting, Lynn indicated that the market rate for 3 of the houses was between $1.3 and $1.4 million. My concern is you're going to potentially sell them a house with a septic system that might fail 4 to 5 years out. So why not do the right thing, take data when it's wet to make sure that the septic systems are adequately sized for the soil conditions.
With all due respect, after these hearings, these plans are going to go in front of the town board of health, and they are going to approve the septic plans.
Mike,
So
you need to
this
mute
is-
again.
This is not the end of the review process, and we would respectfully ask you to table this comment and concern for the next meeting when your peer review consultant, Sean, can, address it. That is who is working on behalf of the town on these types of matters.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say, was we can run this past Sean and have him comment on it next time. Okay, Mike, anything else? You need to unmute. Mike, you're muted. Can't hear you.
Yep, hold on. Yep. This comment comes from the site visit where we were basically shown the elevations of the lots and the septic systems by like, they were kind of like here, but there was a request that drawings would be produced that showed the elevations of the lot and the septic systems with respect to the road. And I haven't seen that yet, unless I missed it.
Okay, Mike, please mute while we comment. I had a similar comment, which was, the profile drawings, I'm not sure the correct terminology, but the profile drawings that have been submitted don't show the way the houses are going to appear from the road in terms of how much rise there's going to be, how far above ground level, road level, the houses are going to be and what that looks like. And so is that something that you can readily do? Because I'd like to see what they're going to look like. When we were at the site visit, there was a comment about the house next to Trout Brook 2 being at a similar height to what the proposed buildings are going to be. But that house was set back a lot further from the road, so the gradient from the street to the house was a pretty gradual slope. And my impression is these houses are going to be closer to the street, and therefore it's going to be a steeper slope. And I would really like to see what that looks like. Is that something that the applicant can do on drawings?
I think Dan and I talked about maybe being able to figure that out together. I think we tried to have the renderings show that a little bit, but without having a specific marker to say like where you're standing on the street. It's probably a little less clear in that aspect.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think the renderings that Aaron produced depict the front view of the house. And Lynn can pop these up here. So that's the, that's the realistic front projection of the house. And the garage sits lower than the main floor of the house. So the garage doors in each of the lots will be 1 to 2 feet above the elevation of the road. And then the first floor of the house is a couple feet above the garage. So you're going to end up with these very kind of small 18-inch high, 2-foot high retaining walls kind of around the front door with a set of stairs that lead up to the front door. So that, you had that front view in the architectural plans and that rendering that depicts that. And then the grading plans, indicate all of the grades that are existing and proposed.
Mhm.
So are you saying that as shown on these drawings, that each of the 4 houses is going to be just a foot or 2 above street level?
Each of the proposed garages, the garage doors will be a foot or 2 above the house. And as you can see on that rendering in the top left corner, you can see that the first floor of house is a couple of feet higher than the garage. And you navigate that with a short, basically landscape retaining wall and a set of stairs that would lead from the driveway up to the front door. So that right there is what you see there is based on our grading plans.
Mhm.
Just gonna keep bringing them up.
Right.
So this is lot 4. You can see there's not as much.
That's lot 4 where there aren't retaining walls around the front door.
Right.
Basically bringing the grade up around it.
Mhm. That gradually slopes more around.
And then this last one, which is lot 45, has grading. And when we were looking across the street, you saw where my cursor is. On every single house, you see about 2 feet of concrete at the bottom of everyone else's house. When we are on the sidewalk on all the neighbors, we are going to obviously be hoping to do the small retaining walls and the landscaping to in essence not just have an empty foundation being shown from the street, which is absolutely, if you look across the street from 45 and next door, what we saw. That's why I thought it was important to be on the sidewalk.
Mhm.
And so you can see
Yeah,
down
but
here.
your elevations,
Let's see down here.
your elevations don't show the elevated septic systems.
Cliff has his hand up. I think when we were on the sidewalk, the sites are going to be built up because today they go down. That was one of the things that we pointed out on the site walk is every site started by going down. So yes, they are going to be built up to get to street level. But I don't know if Cliff can do a better job of explaining this.
Yeah, the comment I wanted to make, and I completely agree. On half of what's been said, these renderings now do, I think, accurately reflect everything that's proposed in the drawings. I looked at these pretty carefully. I think that, but in my, and Lynn, you mentioned earlier on, I think you were connecting to this idea of providing this section that goes out to the street. That I think it's easy from a technical perspective for people who are used to looking at technical drawings to kind of visualize what it really would look like from the street. So I think the chair's request for that section that goes out to the street, just as an analytical tool to see how it might be different from the many of the nearby homes, is not a big ask. I think these renderings are accurate from what I can tell, looking across between architectural and civil drawings. But it kind of connects back to what I was saying earlier, is I think my goal is just people having a clear idea of what might be coming, and figure out how to deal with that, and which I think is doable. But I do think a more analytical drawing would help understand the difference between this proposal and the existing homes. But I do really want to say, I think these are accurate perspectives. They might be a little bit taken from a little bit higher than where you actually might see it from if you were standing out in the street. I can't quite tell where the perspective point is. It looks a little high to me. So one way or the other, I think just pushing that point a little bit further would be helpful in understanding how these homes may be a little bit different from the neighboring homes.
I think at this point, our focus is to respond to Sean's requests. And if there is any time left to provide additional drawings, we will consider it. But I think that we felt that the drawings that we have provided today, because again, the town has a technical consultant in Sean and in you, are what's on the table today. So I cannot make any promises. I feel like we fulfilled what we said we were going to do on the site walk, and in response to the comments we've received.
Well, let me just say, Lynn, that yes, we want you to respond to the comments from our peer review consultants, but if there are additional comments from the board, such as we've just been discussing, those need to be responded to as well. And I think if I understand what Cliff is saying, that the drawings that you've shown us, with showing the front of the houses, you can't see the street, the edge of the street in those drawings, and depending on what the point of view is that those drawings are rendered from, that could be at some level above the street, so that it doesn't accurately show what the houses are going to look like if you're standing on the street.
I think that was the point of the site walk, was to point all of that out and point to where things were going to be, and talk about how high they were off the street and how they compared to neighbors that are many, many, many feet away. So I don't know if Dan has anything more to add to this, but I'm gonna.
Lynn, I understand what you're saying, and as I commented a minute ago, the comparison, there were comments, there was some discussion of this at the site visit. There were comments from representatives of the applicant about what the house next door to Trout Brook 2 looked like. And as I said, that's set much further back. And my impression, we couldn't have a discussion at the site visit because of public meeting law restrictions, as our town council has interpreted them and as the Attorney General's office interprets them. So we didn't have a back and forth. And one concern I had, which I've expressed tonight, is, it's not clear to me. I can't fully visualize from seeing a piece of tape wrapped around a tree trunk 40 feet back from the street as to where the top of the foundation is going to be, how that's going to look when the house is constructed, when you're looking at it from the street. So that's why I'm raising it now. And I would like to get some further reassurance on that. And you don't have to do it tonight, but that is something that it's a little less of a concern based on Cliff's comments, but it's still a concern that I'm not fully satisfied is not legitimate. Okay.
Not understood. I'm happy to share with you another house at 21 Edgewater that, to give you again, I think that you're, this is on the ground, another site that's been built up and literally has, is foundation is 5 feet above grade. So that's why we're showing you that, our houses are not actually going to be to this extreme. And this is like literally, on the same street on Edgewater.
I hear you, Lynn, but if you look at that view, that house appears to be set back from the street much further than these proposed houses.
But why does that matter? What we're going to show you isn't going to change. And so, kind of let's just kind of follow this thought a little bit. We, as you understand, have limited space to work with on the sites because of the wetlands, as to where we can locate our buildings, as to where we can locate our wells and our septic systems. We have given you perspectives and elevations and shown you what is going to be, where our foundation wall is. What is going to change if we delay the hearings another month or two to pull these together and show them to you? That's what to what extent you can keep asking, you can keep asking for things, but it's not going to change how the lots have been designed. They are what they are.
Alan, could I jump in just real quickly?
Yeah, sure.
Why don't we've heard your request. We obviously can't produce a different drawing tonight. Why don't we talk to Erin tomorrow and see how heavy a lift that would be, and how quickly that can be put together, and if we can provide it, we will provide it so that you have it before the next hearing. But as Lynn said, I think trying to understand that our goal is to finish up the hearing process. You've heard from both your experts that they're largely satisfied with the status of the plans as submitted. But we've heard you, and let's see if we can take this issue off the table.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We don't have any desire to extend the hearing process any more than necessary. I'm just trying to get a sense of what the visual impact of these houses is going to be. And I don't have a sense of that strong enough. As I say, I'm reassured by some of the comments tonight, but I still am a little uncertain as to what that visual impact is going to be. And if there's some way we can depict that so that I can be satisfied, then I think that's to your benefit.
Understood.
Okay, Laverne, you had some comments.
Well, I have a lot of comments. When we got there and Scott Goddard met us and we're all standing in water, over our shoes. And he is showing us, like you said, markers on the trees, like, well, this is going to be the the bottom of the foundation. And I'm thinking just what you're thinking. So the driveway is going to be at like a 45-degree angle, climbing up this big hill to get to this house. It's not going to look like this picture. If you want to see what it looks like, you see my next door neighbor. He's built 10 feet up above the floodplain. It's like a big gigantic mound. So I'm looking at this going, all right, it's not going to be good. And you know, we were standing there in the water, and he was talking about the active streams, the backwash from the Charles River, Trout Brook. I'm just worried, like Mike is, that if one of these septic systems fail, there's no place to go. You can't even go to the neighbor. You have to, there's no place you can go with septic and water on a small lot like that, with rivers and brooks and streams all the way around. We've got to protect our own town. We've got to protect our sources. We've got to protect the 27 people who've complained. I just don't see how this whole thing's going to work. That's just my opinion. Too many negatives, too many things against it. I'm too concerned about the environment, I guess. Those are my comments for today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cliff, I see has a comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, through the chair, I think what I would suggest, and I appreciate Jonathan's comment about not wanting to spend tons of time, and I think that it would be an effective tool. I'm not sure what software the architect is using, but if full rendering is I think all I'm suggesting is we don't really need, or I don't think the board really needs to see a fully rendered view. Just change. I'm not sure which 3D software they're using, but backing up, correcting the perspective height, and not necessarily going through the full rendering process might satisfy the needs of the board without really imposing a lot of extra effort on the applicant. And it's really the architect. I don't know what software they're using. We do tons of renderings in my office. And I don't think you need to see all the colors and even all the clapboard patterns or whatever, but just from what I'm hearing, the concerns are from the board. I think that it could be a very small effort to back up a bit and change the perspective view so that a person is standing at the street and you're seeing a view from 5'7" off the street. So I'm just putting that to the board to not, in an attempt to not really put a heavy burden that might create a big time delay on the process.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just to respond to the comments that were made, the flags that were installed on the site were the top of the concrete foundation, not the bottom. And that is the concrete foundation of the house, which is not the finished grade around the house. As Lynn noted, finished grade around houses is typically 18 to 24 inches below the top of the foundation wall. Right, so the top of the foundation wall is essentially 5 feet above the street, which means the finished grade around the house is only 3 feet above the street. And if you study the site plans, see that the garages, as shown in this picture, are set down a couple of feet from the top of the foundation wall, the main foundation wall, and those garage doors and the associated driveways are only 1 or 2 feet higher than the street. So it's not going to be this, you know, elaborate slope up from the street to the garage doors or to the front door. And with respect to septic systems, state regulation requires that the design includes a reserve area that could be used in the event that the septic system failed at some point in the future. So that's, you basically have room in any design that has to be approved by the Board of Health to build essentially 2 septic systems in the plan that would be prepared for that.
Yeah, we'll get input from Sean on that hopefully next time.
Yeah.
And I understand your comments, and you know, I have no desire to I'm hoping that the visual impact is as you describe. It just would be nice to see something that makes that clear. And if
We'll
that
see
can
what
be
we can
done,
do.
that can be done fairly easily, as Cliff is suggesting might be possible, that'd be terrific. Mike,
I have several more issues I'd like to bring up.
okay?
Septic systems on lots 1A and 2A. They're back to back, and you essentially have one giant 8-bedroom system. There's also, it's elevated up about 6 feet, I think Dan said. He can verify that, or maybe tell us what how far up the septic system is elevated from ground level.
Sure, the grade over the septic system for lot 1 and 2 will be 4 to 5 feet above the road.
Okay, I got you. Thank you. One thing that concerns me is you have a lot of effluent in a relatively small area, and the water table is relatively close to the surface. What impact does that have on drinking water? Will there be a need to drill monitoring wells to make sure that nitrogen levels don't get too high into neighboring waters, the water wells?
No, so Title 5 has, could you mute yourself?
Yeah, Mike, you need to mute. Okay.
Yeah, so Title 5 has specifics. Title 5 is the state regulation for septic system designs. It has specific requirements for how high above the groundwater table the septic system has to be, which is why they're elevated above the ground. And all of the treatment occurs in that area between the bottom of the leaching trenches and the high groundwater table. And that's all prescribed in state regulation. The state has regulations that specifically address requirements for the amount of effluent that can be disposed of on a given lot if there are drinking water wells on the same lot. And these septic systems would comply with those requirements. So, there is the state regulations take that into consideration, that there are drinking water wells on these lots and on surrounding lots. And each of these septic systems will be designed in accordance with state regulations, which is something that we're obligated to do.
All right. Again, I wish Sean was here for the next question. These are pump systems, so you're pumping uphill into the elevated septic systems. Essentially, you have a septic system with a pressure head. What effect does that energy from the pressure head have on the groundwater and the movement of the effluent into drinking water?
Sure. You want to mute again?
Oh, yep, gotcha.
Yeah, so the system for lot 1, which is the one on the left, does not have a pump. It's a gravity design. The house on the right does have a pump. That is a low pressure pump. It's not actually a pressure dosing system, which is maybe a different kind of system that you're thinking of. It's a gravity distribution system. So what happens is that pump tank in the ground next to the house on lot 2A is, maybe it's 4 or 5 feet lower than the septic system elevation. So the pump is a low head pump that simply pumps the effluent up to the distribution box, which is that little square box to the right of the words future lot 2A, right above the A to the right. That's a distribution box. Once the effluent enters that distribution box, it's no longer pressurized, and it flows by gravity through the 2 leaching trenches. So it's not a pressure distribution system, which is a different kind of septic system design.
Yeah, that's not what I'm alluding to. I understand about once the effluent gets to the field and it dumps into the distribution box. the distribution box has a certain height above ground level, and there's a pressure head there.
As soon as it enters the distribution box, it's no longer pressurized. As soon as
But
it
it's
hits the atmosphere, it's no longer pressurized.
But how far is it above ground level?
The distribution box will be probably 3 feet above ground level.
Okay,
Current ground level.
So you have 3 feet of head above ground level. So you have a pressure head.
Well, I think I disagree with your characterization of that. Basically, you might want to mute yourself.
Mike, you need to mute again.
So essentially, it's like pouring a bucket of water out on top of the ground. The water is just, the effluent is basically just water, and the water enters the leaching trenches, and a leaching trench is simply a rectangular trench filled with crushed stone with a pipe, a perforated pipe in it. So you dump the water into the distribution box and it flows into these trenches. And essentially what happens is a bacteria mat grows at the bottom of the leaching trenches. And this is fundamental septic system operation and design. It applies universally to all kinds of septic systems. You get a biomat at the bottom of that crushed stone trench, and that biomat is what treats the effluent. So there's no, I disagree with the characterizing it as a pressure head. You can have a pressurized effluent distribution system, but again, as soon as the water leaves the pipe, whether it's a pressurized distribution system or a gravity system, it's no longer pressurized. It's at atmospheric pressure.
I'm not talking about something pushing down on it. The water is going to sit at a height. This is ground level, and you're going to have a height of water above it. Probably about 2 feet, 3 feet, you said?
The water
that
goes through the trenches, through the soil. So the water comes out of the bottom of the leaching trench, and it flows vertically down from the bottom of the leaching trench until it hits the groundwater table, and then it distributes laterally. And this is what all septic systems do. All septic systems, except for old septic systems, all new septic systems are above the groundwater table by a minimum of 4 feet, and in some cases 5. That's required by state law.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to table this right now. And when we talk next with Sean, I'm going to ask him, maybe he can explain it to me better, because I'm not understanding what it is you're telling me. To me, it looks like there's a pressure head there because you're 6 feet up, and it's going to be a column of water sitting above ground level, which represents residual energy. So I'll discuss it with Sean. He can maybe set me straight if I'm off base.
Yeah, we can discuss this further with Sean.
All right. Let me get to the
Yeah, we can discuss this further with Sean.
all right. I had some more. Oh. This is for Lynn. Sheet DD4, the affordable front entry unit. Above the garage, you have it listed as unfinished storage, and you also have a door that leads into unfinished storage. When the folks that buy that house own it, is there anything preventing them from finishing the upstairs of that garage and adding 2 or 3 bedrooms?
Chapter 40B zoning, building codes. Building codes.
Title
Mike,
5.
Mike, you need to mute again.
Title 5, there's many reasons why that space cannot be finished and made into a bedroom.
And I would just add that's no different from all the houses throughout that probably have septic systems of a certain size. And if they finish their attics or their basements or turn their living rooms into bedrooms or their studies into bedrooms, they would be in violation. And that's no different from the case here, except that will also be 2 state agencies looking over the shoulders of anyone, because these houses will be subject to a regulatory agreement and a monitoring services agreement and a comprehensive permit. And so it will be subject to enforcement by any number of entities if someone were to do that.
And my company is a monitor for about 200 affordable homes, including Dover Farms in Dover. Every year we check in with them. When an affordable homeowner buys a unit, they are given a disclosure that tells them what they can and cannot do with their unit. And every year they need to tell us if they're making any capital improvements. If they come to us with capital improvements, we tell them to look at the condominium documents, to contact the building inspector. So there is more oversight on the affordable units than there is for typical non-affordable or restricted units in the community.
Well, maybe they don't announce that they're putting in bedrooms, but couldn't they do some finished work to that area to put extra people there and not declare it as a bedroom? It just kind of looks like another room. They could call it a playroom or a man cave, whatever you want to call it. But
if somebody came to us with a request to finish a room, we would be very clear.
Mike, you need to mute.
We would be very clear to them that that unit that can be used for storage, that any money they spend on finishing it is not going to be added to their purchase price. And under no circumstances can they use that as bedroom living space.
Mike, as I understand the septic standards. Mike, as I understand the septic. Can you mute standards while I comment? Mike, my understanding of the septic requirements is that it is based on the number of bedrooms, and other rooms, playrooms or whatever, aren't counted in the septic calculations. It doesn't mean somebody can't put a sofa bed in there, but there's no way you can regulate that at this point. And as Lynn is saying, as I understand the process, there is a continuing supervision of the 40B affordable units, which presumably would make it harder to get away with that than in a regular house.
Yeah. In addition, they have to declare how many people are living in the unit. So if we saw that it was a 4-bedroom home and there were 8 people living there, there would be an inspection and a conversation.
Anything else, Mike?
Well, yeah, this kind of reminds me of what we saw in a previous 40B development where on the 3rd floor they had lofts, and they were being sold as, you know, places where people can go and bask in the sun because it's sunny and airy. And the board basically made them get rid of the lofts because they were extra bedroom space. So I'm wondering, you know, why somebody couldn't do that with the unfinished storage above the garage. I mean, it's open, it's there. If you look at the economics of the affordable unit, these people buy a house, get a mortgage, and they technically own it, but maybe they only half own it because there's a lot of oversight. And they get no equity in the house. They pay principal, interest, and taxes, and they get back an interest, a no interest loan or no interest on their money when they sell it. So there's no way for them to get ahead.
That's
owning
not,
a home.
that is totally incorrect. Can you mute, please, so I can explain to you the process? When somebody purchases an affordable home, the purchase price is set for somebody earning 70% of 80% of AMI. The purchase price takes into account what is paid for real estate taxes, condominium fees. In this case, I don't think there'll be condo fees, taxes, insurance, private mortgage insurance. That purchase price is based on what the income limit is in a given year. The benefit to somebody purchasing this home is that they have fixed housing costs. So the goal for them to get ahead is to actually be able to save money going forward, because they are entering the market at low housing cost, and they presumably are early in their careers, and they will be going on to earn more money and put money ahead. That's why it is called a first-time home buyer program. It is indeed absolutely a step up. When they go to sell the unit needs to be affordable to somebody earning 70% of 80% of AMI. Every year, income limits go up, and most of the time, the owner is entitled to sell their unit for what they paid for it, and oftentimes there is additional appreciation. So they own the house 100% outright. They have a full deed to the property. It is, however, income restricted, and that has to do with who initially occupies the house. So people often live in affordable homes, save money, sell the homes, and move on to their second home, or their third home. So I don't think you really understand how the program works, but happy to help you with that.
So Lynn, let me
And
ask.
if I could add,
Hold on to Mike. Lynn, are you saying that? Lynn, are you saying that, see if I understand what you're saying. You're saying that buying it today, they're paying 70 to 80% of AMI, but if they're selling 5 years from now, 70 to 80% of AMI may be a higher number. So
Sometimes.
to that extent, they would realize some increase, some equity realization
Yeah.
from their ownership.
Yeah, I mean,
and they're
they're
paying a
not
mortgage.
promised, they're not promised that, there are 3 tests under the deed rider. One is that there is a resale multiplier. The other test is the 70 to 80%. And the last is, in most instances, unless otherwise agreed, they get what they pay for. It is true that for first-time home buyers out there today, there are programs out there that are helping paying with down payment assistance, and there are incentives for lower interest rates. But they are going to be homeowners like anyone else in your community. And so I think that's what I'm concerned about when you said they own half a house. They don't own half a house. They own the entire house.
And these generally are not interest-only mortgages. They are building equity, even apart from appreciation. So I don't know where that notion came from, but just because you're an affordable home buyer doesn't mean you're less of a home buyer, homeowner, or that you're not building equity. Not, I don't really understand how that's relevant anyways, but it is untrue. The other thing that's important is if you spend $40,000 to finish an unfinished space and somehow you get away with it, if you're doing it yourself, you're not using a licensed contractor, just like, any scofflaw in any town, whether or not in an affordable unit, can do that to suggest that it's more likely in an affordable unit. I'm not sure why that would be. But if it were done here, you wouldn't get that money back because you wouldn't be able to increase the value of your home based upon the increased market value because it's not a market value sale. So I would suggest that there's much less incentive to do those sorts of illegal improvements in an affordable home than there would be in any less regulated unit in this town's housing stock.
Okay, thank you. Mike, anything else?
Ah, boy. I personally think that something's got to be done about that unfinished space. Either wall it off to make sure nobody can get into it, or put a whole slew of roof trusses in there so that nothing can be done with it. So it's occupied with structural support. But I think that it is ripe for somebody wanting to finish it and add extra people, either for income or to add extra family members to the mix. So I think it's somewhat, I don't want to say it, but that's human nature. That's what people do. That's why we got rid of those lofts in the previous one.
And to me, that's prejudice, because there are those unfinished spaces. Market rate units.
Mike, you need to mute. I think, Mike, I think the answer to here is that, I mean, we can ask our consultants, but this is not something that is within the scope of what the Board of Appeals can try to regulate as part of this process. If they're going to try to, if whoever buys the affordable unit is going to try to circumvent the legal restrictions, that's not something that this board, as part of this process, can prohibit in any effective way. So anything else, Mike, you want to ask about or make a comment on?
Yeah, I got two more. Why do you have basements in these houses? I mean, it's a really wet location. The groundwater levels within 18 inches from the basement floor. So, essentially, it's gonna fill with water. And if you get basements that fill with water, you're gonna get all sorts of mold growth and other things that you don't want happening to your house. How come they're not on just a nice thick, slab, so they don't get, water and mold and all the other headaches you get with it?
Okay, Mike, mute while we get a response. Dan or Lynn, is there?
Sure.
Is there any problem with water infiltration in the basements of these units?
No, if you look at the design, the proposed basement elevations are at or above the 100-year flood elevations on each of the lots. So they're not going to fill with water. They're not going to be in the groundwater table. They're above the groundwater table. And we've worked in basements because we could work in basements. The elevations are such that it's something that we can accommodate, and it's a desired feature in a lot of homes, and it was able to work out on these particular sites.
Okay, Mike, anything else?
Okay. Just one more. Lot 45 delineates a riparian zone. Do any of the other lots have that problem, or it's just 4 or 5?
It's just lot 45.
Okay. And it looks like if there is a flood, that house will basically flood. Basements will get flooded.
No, again, the basement of that house is at or above the flood elevation, the 100-year flood elevation. And the yard will be raised around the basement, so the basement would not flood.
Okay.
Nadir, do you have any
Thank you.
comments?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Okay, Lynn, anything else you and your team want to discuss with us or present to us tonight?
Nope, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, So we need to set a next meeting date. Lynn, how much time do you need to get to us your additional submissions?
We're hoping to get this submission into you on Friday or Monday. We would suggest scheduling a meeting the week of the 22nd.
Okay, board members, 22nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, what's your availability?
I'm gonna be away, but I'll bring my iPad with me and I will be on the Zoom meeting from Palm Springs, California.
So do all those dates work for you from Palm Springs?
Yeah, they do, yeah.
Okay, Mike and Nadir?
22nd, 23rd, and 24th are better, but I can make any of them work.
Okay,
I actually have a conflict on the 22nd. Dan, are you good on the 23rd, 24th, or 25th?
I have a conflict on the 24th. 22nd or the 25th would be better for me.
So it looks like we're narrowing it down to the 25th,
or the 23rd.
23rd, or 25.
Mike?
Do you? I was going to say, I wish you could check with Sean because that's obviously the most important.
Well, his comment to me was before we started that he could make it work.
Okay.
Mike, what, do you have any problem with the 23rd or the 25th?
Nope.
So let's do the 23rd.
I'm good.
Alan, if it's sorry, Mike, would you mind reading?
Mike, you need to mute. Go ahead, Jonathan.
I have a 40B hearing in Everett on the 23rd. It starts at 5. It might well be done by 7, but it's the first hearing, so I tend to doubt it. Would the 25th? It seemed like everyone was able to do the 25th.
Yeah, we can
that's
do
the
that.
case,
If that's easier for you, we can do that.
that'd be great.
Okay, so the 25th it is. I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing to Thursday, January 25th of 2024 at 7 p.m. via Zoom.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we'll see everybody on the 25th, and we'll look forward to the additional submissions in the next several days from the applicant and have those reviewed by our peer review consultants. And in the meantime, the applicant will submit the additional funds to be held in escrow, and then we'll see where we are on the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you all.
Great, thanks.
Thanks.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll
bye-bye.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Second, and I.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Okay,
Good
thank
night.
you. Good night.